When I was working out in Johannesburg, it was a rough life because I was living all the way in the south of Johannesburg in Lenasia, and it would be typically a 35 to 45 minute commute to work every day. I would leave early in the morning, around 5 o'clock, just to beat the traffic. And by the time I reached home, it was like 6 in the evening. It was a lovely job, and I had great people to work with, but that traveling was just not for me. And that's if you were lucky, right? Because if you encountered an accident or rain, then the traffic would be backed up, and sometimes it would take me 2.5 hours to get home. Now, often to escape the hustle and bustle of the Johannesburg life, we used to go and spend our holidays in KwaZulu-Natal. And typically when people from Johannesburg go to KZN, they go for the beaches. And there was this one quiet beach that my family and I really enjoyed visiting. My wife enjoyed it, the kids enjoyed it. It was, and still is, a very quiet beach. And there was this one house on this beach that really caught my attention. It was positioned in such a way that it was on a hill, and it had beautiful sweeping views of the ocean. And behind the house, there was a forest. It was a beautiful house, very old-fashioned, lots of wood finishes. And there's something about that house. It wasn't an expensive looking house. It wasn't a glamorous looking house. It was a simple house. But something about it, maybe where it was set, maybe where it was positioned, it really grabbed my attention. And it caused a feeling inside of me that how nice if I could live in that house with my family on this quiet beach with ocean views in front, with the forest behind, a peaceful environment. If I could work from home and, day after day, just live out my life this way, away from the big city bustle and hustle and bustle and the traffic and the travel and everything else that goes with it. I mean, in the city, it was particularly challenging with small kids because there wasn't much to do. I mean, Johannesburg isn't a place that is known for nature reserves and game parks. If you needed to visit any one of those, you would have to travel at least 2 or 3 hours to get to them. So all we had were parks and malls, and without hesitation, every week we would end up in one or the other, and it got stale very quick. So looking at this house where it was positioned in a quiet area with nature in front, nature behind, it really appealed to me. And at that point, I made up my mind that I would love to have this lifestyle. And I'm going to design my life so that a day will come, I don't care how long it takes, but a day will come when I will have that lifestyle, where I'm free to work from anywhere in the world. And if possible, I will get a place right in front of the ocean with lots of nature, with lots of trails, with lots of nature parks in a quiet area. And I'm going to be running my own business. And that was my vision. So it took the picture of that house, and I can still picture it, even though I never bought that house or never moved into that place, but I can still picture it. And now and again we drive past there and I look at that house, and it's significant for me because for me it was the genesis of this dream, this vision. It's what triggered this vision. For me, the vision wasn't about fancy sports cars. It wasn't about living it up and jet setting and traveling. It was a peaceful life. That's where it started. Travel came afterwards. And that house was significant for me. Now today, looking back, I would say 85% accomplished that lifestyle. I have a business of my own. I do not live in Johannesburg anymore. We frequent a place in the South Coast that is a beautiful, beautiful place. that is surrounded by nature and beach. And not only did and that was another thing that I wanted, was to spend a lot of time with my kids. So not did I just achieve that, but I get to work with my boys also, because they all decided to join me in the business, and they are true assets in the business. So it was at that point that I made up my mind that I'm going to craft this lifestyle. Now, I'm by no means a very rich person. I'm by no means super wealthy that I can afford any car I want. But I'm a very contented person, in a sense that I have all of these things that I wanted, and I do travel quite frequently. And that's all I want out of life. I mean, give me a few more millions, give me $1 billion, and I'm still going to maintain this lifestyle. Maybe I'll add a little more travel, but there's not much more. So what I'm trying to say is that it took this house to trigger something inside of me and to enable me to come to a vision, to formulate a vision for the rest of my life and something to work towards. And I've diligently worked towards that since then. But it hasn't been an easy journey. So when I went back to Johannesburg, I started thinking about, how am I going to get this life? And I went back to the drawing boards, and I in my free time when I wasn't working, took out pencil and paper and thought about exactly how I'm going to do this. And it so happened, quite coincidentally, I guess when you put out a message to the universe that I'm seeking something, I'm seeking change, then one of my directors at the company I was working for, the software development company, one day recommended to me, he says, Bilal, you got teacher in you, you like explaining things. Why don't you run after hours classes? And that was the light bulb moment for me. That's the business that I would like to start. Something that combines my passion for technology and coding and also my passion for teaching. And so what I did next was I rented out the granny flat that was in my yard. I was renting the place, and it just so happened that the granny flat was available and the landlord was supposed to let it out to someone. So I went up to him and I said, look, I am your existing tenant, let that one out to me also. And so I had basically the main house and the granny flat to myself after he agreed, and we started paying rent on that. Then I went up to my dad. I said, Dad, I want to start a little business. I need money. So my dad lent me 25,000 rand, completely repayable, interest-free though. And so I used that money to set up my little classroom with desks. My God, it was such a beautiful classroom. It's a pity I don't have any photos anymore. So we set up these desks and chairs with computers, and it was really quite an attractive little classroom that we set up. We had all the software set up, and we had the whiteboard, projector, everything ready for business. Except in the first few days, few weeks, all that we had was crickets chirping. It's not a case where if you build it, they will come. It's not like that. So here we had this beautiful classroom, and of course I did formulate a curriculum, different courses, everything from basic computer literacy to advanced computer programming. I had all that set, but no one came. And it's pretty obvious why. It's that we didn't market ourselves. It was kind of naive that we could just set everything up and expect people to come. And so that's where I had to teach myself business skills. That was the point that I realized that having all these skills, having this infrastructure, having this classroom and this curriculum is not enough. I'm going to need to gain some skills. And so the first skill I needed to get was to market my business and fill these seats with some bums and get revenue coming into my new business. And so we started learning how to market. I started reading up about advertising, and those were still the very early days of technology. And so social media wasn't a big thing. Digital marketing wasn't a big thing. So we started advertising in the newspapers, and we started making brochures. And then I went to computer centers and computer shops and started advertising my services to them. And one of the ideas we had was that we go to the computer shop, and since they are selling computers to people, and people who buy these computers would want the knowledge of how to use them, that these computer stores would, refer them to us, and we would generate business like that. And it all worked out. And within a couple of months, I was making as much money in my side gig, part-time business as I was in my full-time job. And as I've told you in the past, as things worked out, I was able to leave my full-time job after a couple of months and focus on my business. But it wasn't the end of my challenges, because my challenges just continued and continued. And with each challenge that presented itself, I had to gain more knowledge, and I had to gain a better understanding of what was going on. So I like to put it as, a Lego brick. So if you look at this Lego brick, right? If you look at this Lego brick, this was the basis, the foundation of my skills, my ability to code and my ability to teach that code. But that was not enough. There was so much more that I realized that I needed. So the next thing I needed to add on top of that was some marketing skills. And then very soon people started to ask me if my courses were accredited. Huh? What does that even mean? So I had to learn about accreditation. Where do you get accreditation? How do you get your courses accredited? So I had to add on that. Then I had to add on business management skills. And as the money came in, I had to learn about business finance, how to make a business budget, how to allocate money into marketing, how much of money I could take from the business and spend on myself and my family, how much I had to reinvest into the business. So it wasn't, as straightforward and as easy as just getting a salary. When you get a salary, that's it, that you can spend all of it. With a business, some of the money belongs to you, and the rest belongs to the business itself, and you have to keep reinvesting to grow that business. And so I had to learn business finance. Now, I had to basically start off with that foundational knowledge that I had and slowly build on that. Now, it was a beautiful journey for me, but it was a mistake that I made from the outset, thinking that my skills and my classroom and my infrastructure was going to be enough. And that's the mistake that most of you make. You are good at something. Maybe you are a guy who's been working as a carpenter for many years, or a plumber, or a web designer, or a computer programmer, or you're a person who is good at making certain types of food. Maybe you make great samosas, or great burgers, or pizzas, or you make great coffee. And then one day you strike up on the idea of turning that into a business. Good idea, no doubt, but it's just the foundation. It's just the green block. It's just the green block. Now, what you need to do is to add on the other blocks. You need to add on the other skills. So you've got your foundational skills, your passions, your interests. Now, add some business management skills, add some marketing skills, add some finance skills, add all the skills that you need. And this happens over a period of time. And for me, that was one of the most exciting parts about the journey of entrepreneurship, that I was constantly challenged by my business, and it gave me opportunities to grow and to learn more skills and to grow even more. And I really enjoyed that part of the journey, and I'm still enjoying it, because as my business grows and now as it becomes more and more international, it's giving me new challenges and forcing me to learn new skills and to grow. Now I've got a team around me, but there's still significant amount of learning for me as a person. Now, I'm a type of person who is naturally inclined to lifelong learning. And I think my strength in business has been that. And for anybody, any of you who are out there in the world, either working at a company or working as as an entrepreneur, you have your own business, I have one bit of advice for you. It's this: never stop learning. Just keep learning. No learning ever goes to waste. If you find yourself at a point where there aren't any significant challenges in your business and there is nothing that your business is forcing you to learn, even then, pick up a course, pick up a book and start learning. Now, how do you become a lifelong learner? For me, I adopted a few different methodologies, different approaches to learning. The first and foremost, the most direct, was whenever I faced a challenge with my business, I went online and I started looking for articles, courses, books that would help me to overcome that. But another very important way that I found to learn and to fast track your learning was just to go and ask people, to go and ask an expert, to go and ask a mentor. And I've had a number of people over the years, a number of mentors and experts who I consulted over time to help me solve problems. Many of them gave me direct solutions. Others didn't give me direct solutions, but they brought me to a decision tree. They said, well, at this point in your business, you're going to have to A, B, or C. Now you're going to have to evaluate the pros and cons of each one and make a decision for yourself. Others still gave me a learning pathway. They said, well, okay, if you want to excel in this part of your business, then you need to learn A, B, and C. And so they laid out a learning pathway for me, which made it so much easier. It was significantly easier than going online and doing my own research about what to learn before actually starting the learning. To have the luxury of somebody telling you what to learn is super important. It's such a great thing because it saves you so much of time and it puts you onto the right track. So I would consume courses upon courses and books upon books and articles and podcasts, you name it. You know, we are living in a golden age of learning and I'm loving every aspect of it. It's one of the things that I feel so grateful for, that I'm living in the time that I'm in. Often I think about living in a past time, a little more peaceful time, a more a simpler time. But can I do without my online learning? Absolutely not. I think if there was a time machine and I went all the way back to the past, that's what I would miss the most. I mean, they had books, no doubt, but look at what we have. We have books, but we have digital books. I mean, instead of deciding which book I'm going to take with me on a plane or on a trip, I take my whole library with me. It's all on my iPad. My entire library of books in 3 different languages, by the way. And then when I am not too inclined to books, there's always videos on YouTube. Instead of reading a book, I can go through a 1.5 to 2 hour video and learn as much from the author of the book who is giving a talk as much as I would read in the book. So instead of investing 10 or 12 hours reading a book, I could invest an hour or 2 watching the video while relaxing. Or there's always online courses. I love doing online courses because there's such a wealth of knowledge by people from so many different backgrounds. And I love learning from actual practitioners, people who are out in industry compared to people who are just lecturers. And then there's podcasts. Oh my God, I love podcasts. And some of the best learning that I ever did was via listening to podcasts. And the list goes on and on and on. There's so much. We are surrounded. In fact, there's a deluge of information that we are surrounded with. And so there's never been a better time to be a lifelong learner. And so every single one of us, for business and professional and personal growth, should be lifelong learners. And for me, as I said, that has been my success in business. That has been the main reason for my success in my career as well as in my business. Now, every single one of us has the potential to be an entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur. This is something I always maintain, and it's something that I firmly believe in and I'm a strong proponent of. Wherever and whenever I get a chance to speak to people about starting a business, I do so. Whenever I get a chance to encourage people to start a business, I do so. When I go to schools and I speak to young people about careers, I often throw the cat among the pigeons and I say, okay, you're thinking about this and that profession, but have you ever thought about starting a business of your own? So instead of working for a company or looking forward to working for a company, why don't you become that employer who others will look forward to working for you? Why don't you create a company that people will look forward to working for you? And when I speak about this, then those kids suddenly there's a realization that comes up on them that there's so much more to life than just that linear progression from school to university to getting a job and working for the rest of your life and retiring. There is another option, and that option is business. You can start your own business. And so at the one school that I was at, I asked them, how many of you are making applications to university? Hands up. Almost everyone's hands up. And then I asked, how many of you are making applications to business incubators? No hands up. They were looking at me surprised. What is that? And so I explained to them, business incubators are places where you go and you raise funding for your business and you get advice, guidance, help, mentorship to start and run your business. And it's available. In South Africa, there are many business incubators and it's available to everyone. Funding is available. You just have to learn how to find them and how to apply to them. And so this is something that I encourage everyone. Start a business. You might be a successful professional, you might have a great job, but still, start a business. Start a side gig business because you never know, right? You never know what could happen with your job, first and foremost. And I don't mean to make people afraid, but we know what things are like with jobs. We know what things are like with streamlining and downsizing. People can easily lose their jobs. And then what next? What do you fall back on? What if you lose your job and there's no fallback? There's no other companies hiring. That's where your side gig will come to your rescue. You know, Nicholas Nassim Taleb, the author of the book Antifragile, gives a very good example in his book. He speaks about two brothers. One is a successful banker and earning lots of money, and the other is a taxi driver earning a modest amount of money. And so the banker one day said to his brother, "But why do you keep with this taxi driving of yours? Why don't you take up something in accounts or banking and I'll help you to get a job?" So the brother says, "Look, I'm very content with what I'm doing. I enjoy my job." And so the author fast forwards to a point where there was a recession and the banks started downsizing, and the brother who was the banker lost his job. And because all the banks were downsizing, this poor chap couldn't get a job. So his situation was a very fragile situation. As much as he was making a lot of money while he was working, but he didn't realize there's a significant amount of fragility in his situation, that when he loses that one job, he will lose the entire income source. And so he was left with nothing. But on the other hand, the taxi driver, what happened to him? He found that the areas that he was servicing, which happened to be in that bank district, suddenly took a dive and he wasn't making as much money. Did he lose his entire income? No. He was making money through other runs that he was doing. So what did he do? He shifted his run from that district to another district where there was a demand. And so he started getting a whole new customer base and established a new income source. So he lost a part of his income, not his entire income, which was great, but he also had the flexibility to shift his income to another area where he could, or shift his services to another area where he could make up for the lost income. So his situation was what the author calls an anti-fragile situation. It's an anti-fragile in a sense that he had built himself up to be resilient. You know, last week in the previous episode, I spoke about resilience. So this taxi driver was resilient, even though he wasn't as wealthy as his brother who was the banker. But the banker was non-resilient. He was fragile. But the taxi driver was anti-fragile and he was resilient. And so when the hard times came, he survived. And that's the nature of business. It's the nature of entrepreneurship. You may be thriving one day in your business and suddenly you find that your mainline product has taken a knock. What do? You diversify. You go into other products. You introduce new products and new services and you keep things going that way. So a business person is always shape-shifting, always making the next, looking at the horizon and making the next plan for the next trend that's about to come, and anti-fragiling his or her business as they are doing. And that's why I love business. So whoever you are, housewife, professional, start a business. And like I said, you have the requisite skills. We all have the requisite skills. It's there. The foundational skills are there. You're good at something. You know something. You're passionate about something. You can establish yourself as an authority in something. Now build business skills on top of that and get going. Now, another very important reason for starting a business, and this is something that happened to me recently. I was lying in bed and I was thinking about my life that could have been. You know, at one stage, I was teaching and a colleague of mine went into, well, the two of us went into lecturing from teaching, and he subsequently got a job overseas. He did his master's and PhD, got a job overseas, and he's still there, and he's doing well for himself. After lecturing, I branched out into my own business. And it's been a much more grueling journey than if I had stayed in lecturing. And I had my foot in the door. I was lecturing at private institutes, part-time at private institutes and at public universities, and it was great. It was really, really enjoyable. I'm a natural-born teacher, and I enjoyed the lecturing. And I asked myself, while lying in bed that day, why didn't I stick to that life? It was such an easy life compared to the challenges of business. I would have been a lecturer at a university, probably become a professor by now, get my salary every month. And then the thought hit me, the reminder, why I did this, why I decided to go in this direction. It was this, that actually a couple of things. The first thing was, you know how many of us wish that there was a wealthy family member, a father, grandfather, great-grandfather, who had built up an empire and had left that to us? How nice it would have been. Now, I decided at that point when I wanted to start a business that I want to be that person who left something for the generations to come. In other words, I wanted to build generational wealth for my family, something that I could leave for my kids. I couldn't leave them my job in lecturing. Maybe I would save up some money, which was very unlikely on a lecturer's salary. I would save up something and leave that for them, maybe leave my house for them. But that would be peanuts, right? Now I'm building up a small empire, a business empire, which I will be glad to hand over to them, and they will be glad to hand over to the generation after them and after them. And so I started this business for that. One was the freedom that I always wanted, but also to build generational wealth. So in that sense, my business became not just a business, not just a way of making money, but a way, rather a mission, a life mission, that I am building something for the next generation. And up till today, that still drives me. So once again, I come back to my point. Start a business. We all need a hobby, right? Why not take up a hobby that puts money in your pocket? Start a business. And today, it's never been easier. All you need is this little gadget and you can start. Whether it's a service business, a commodity business, you name it. Learn a few skills and use those skills to start and run a successful business. It might take you years. Who cares, right? It might take you 5 years, but the time will pass. And if you hadn't started that business, in 5 years' time, you will come to the realization that, 5 years ago, I had this idea to start a business. Had I only started. I know people who, during COVID, they lost their jobs and they started businesses, and today they are thriving. It's 2024 now, 4 years after the COVID lockdowns, and they are thriving. It's hard to believe, though, that 4 years have gone past. But 4 years have passed. And in that 4 years, there are people who stuck to the past and did nothing. And there are people who started businesses and are now thriving and running their own businesses and are happy and never look back. So listen to me. Don't let the future you want to come back and kick your butt because you failed to start something. Rather, let the future you want to come back and shake your hand and thank you profusely for starting something that future you is today enjoying. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.